With YouTube attacking alternative media, please consider supporting the channel via Patreon for just $1 per month. Link below. Oh, you know what? Here's the thing. We get so many stories about domestic abuse. None of them are ever good. Don't let my chuckle kind of take away from the fact that none of them are ever good. But it's always interesting when it's a prominent celebrity, or at least a former prominent celebrity, that gets herself in this kind of situation. And this is where we find ourselves talking about Heather Locklear, who's been arrested for domestic violence. Heather Locklear, Melrose Place. Heather Locklear, domestic violence. I am just concerned with this one. Now, actress Heather Locklear was arrested for investigation of domestic violence and fighting with sheriff's deputies at her California home. Deputies responded to a domestic disturbance around 10 p.m. Sunday in Thousand Oaks, west of Los Angeles, Ventura County, Sheriff's Captain Jarbo Kurijian had said. The victim of the alleged domestic violence was a boyfriend who had a physical injury, which makes the offense a felony. He did not know the details of the injury, but the man declined treatment. See, this is okay. Here's what I like about this, because, well, nothing about this I like, but in the subject of the general area. Having a female celebrity be arrested for smacking around her boyfriend is a good thing. All right? It's a good thing, because for far too long, we know, especially if you watch like a lot of movies and a lot of pop culture, you know that if a woman slaps a man, it's generally considered okay. It's generally considered kind of a natural, normal thing. And if the man is to fight back, then he is then the aggressor. He is the person who is the one who is in the wrong. That is not reality, right? Very similar to the fat acceptance people I talked about earlier. That is not reality. That is just you trying to protect your ego. That's not reality. And as a result of that, it does shape the mind of certain people out there that do look at these type of pop culture situations and they think, oh, that is somewhat the norm. No, it is not. So I'm very glad to see that Heather Locklear, a person who I do like, has found herself in the situation where she's not necessarily having that good of a day. Now, Locklear was uncooperative, said the deputies, or with the deputies, and became combative. She was kicking at and pushing our deputies. Probably not the best thing. These guys may have looked at her and been like, man, I had a poster of you on my wall that was not held up by tack. But if you don't stop moving, I'm going to tase your ass. She was also arrested on 3 misdemeanor counts of battery on a police officer. Locklear said that she'd been injured prior to the deputy's arrival, was taken to a hospital, and cleared medically before being booked into county jail. She was released on $20,000 bail and is due in court on March 13th. And then her attorney declined to comment. So she's been charged, and she got out on a $20,000 bond, which is just 10%, you know, so $2,000 is really nothing for Heather Locklear. But the fact that she was still arrested and the fact that this is still a big story, I think is a good thing when it comes to trying to even the pathway for the discussion about abuse against male domestic partners. Or husbands who get beat up. Again, these are things that don't even get talked about. These are things that don't even get like remotely discussed. And if they do get discussed, they're treated, especially from like the feminist side of things, they get treated as being this, well, it's such a, you know, I mean, like, you can't call it sexist because power plus privilege. I mean, she shouldn't attack him, obviously, but you can't call it that. That's our word, not your word. And that's pretty much what it boils down to. Now, the 56-year-old actress was among the biggest stars in television in the 1980s and 1990s with roles on Dynasty, T.J. Hooker, and Melrose Place. All 3 are actually pretty good shows. Authorities did not release the name of the boyfriend who was involved in the call. Locklear has been married twice to Bon Jovi guitarist Richie Sambora and Motley Crue drummer Tommy Lee. Engagement to Melrose Place actor Jack Wagner was called off in 2011. Okay, so here's the thing. This next paragraph here talks about a 2008 arrest, but you know what? There's a little bit more to the story than that one. So coming over here to Yahoo, we can see Heather Locklear arrested for domestic violence, a timeline of her troubles. This is where it gets kind of fun. And also, this is her mugshot. That's her mugshot. That's also going to be the thumbnail of the video, but that's her mugshot. Just little, look at how coy she's trying to play in the mugshot. You have to love that. Oh, I didn't do anything, officer. I mean, I kicked and punched and cussed out you guys a lot, but like, I don't do nothing. This guy over here, he's a liar. He's a dirty little liar. Yeah, that's kind of what it feels like to me. So it says here, so Locklear, who had long dealt with drugs and alcohol issues, is facing felony domestic violence charge, as well as 3 counts of battery on an officer. Now, Yahoo reached out to her longtime publicist for comment, but the representative says she's currently on hiatus with Locklear. You know you screw up when your publicist is like, yeah, listen, I'm setting this one out. I'm sorry, doll. I'm sorry. But looking out here, now it says, with the actress used to make headlines for her primetime TV work for the last decade, many of the headlines have been around personal drama. Following the success of Melrose Place and then her turn in a Golden Globe nominated role on Spin City, Locklear never settled into another TV starring role. In the mid-2000s, her marriage to Bon Jovi's Richie Sambora, with whom she shares a 20-year-old daughter, has its ups and downs ever since. Now, in 2006, after 11 years of marriage, Locklear, whose first husband was Tommy Lee, files for divorce. While they ultimately put aside their differences and co-parent peacefully, Sambora initially goes on a date to Locklear's friend, Denise Richards, in the Tablets of a Field Day. Locklear rebounds with Jack Wagner. In March of 2008, 911 calls made from someone claiming to be Locklear's doctor, saying she was suicidal. Locklear is deemed fine by emergency personnel after a wellness check. 3 months later, she checks into an Arizona medical facility to deal with high anxiety and depression. In September, Locklear is pulled over by California Highway Patrol on suspicion of driving under the influence. While blood tests indicate she wasn't drinking or on illegal drugs, prescription medicine she took for anxiety and depression could have impaired her ability to safely drive a motor vehicle. This is coming from the Santa Barbara County Deputy District Attorney. She is charged with 1 misdemeanor count of driving under the influence. So clearly, there is a lot going on in Heather Locklear's life. I mean, they figure, an 11-year failed marriage in Hollywood, that's like geriatric terms. Then going on and like becoming suicidal and then getting pulled over for driving under the influence of a medication. And then here she's attacking a boyfriend, getting herself arrested, fighting with cops. This is one of the problems with, I think, long-term Hollywood exposure. If I'm being fair, this is one of those big problems. And the reason why I say that has a lot to do with the fact that people have a lot of trouble kind of handling what Hollywood brings to the table, I think, like in terms of the immense pressure, like being involved in that. So when you get into Hollywood and you start off, you kind of like the world's your oyster sort of thing. And then as long as you can maintain that level of fame, you're good. But when that goes away, which happens more often than not, a lot of bad things can go down. And especially when you start kind of running into the decades past your prime, you can find yourself in a situation very similar to Heather Locklear. Now, I'm not trying to make light of the fact that she committed domestic violence against a partner, nor am I trying to excuse her actions. She should clearly pay for them and clearly have to stand for justice in a court of law. This kind of behavior is not accepted. But it does go to show you a little bit of the problems that come with Hollywood and ultimately what happens when people kind of find themselves on the outs with the system. It's unfortunate, it's tragic, it's entirely preventable if people knew how to manage their careers better. And to Heather Locklear, I simply just have to say, yeah, get help, because I think at this point, you freaking need it.